Good afternoon, one and all, and welcome back to another video. Now, as you might have noticed if you look at the videos on my channel, I've been rather busy for the last few weeks due to various real-life obligations, and while I still have a considerable amount of work to do, I thought that it might be fun to, as promised, revisit every model locomotive in my collection. Here's an example of one of them. So, let's get into it. Alright, so starting off with the Great Western engines in my collection, and the most recent model I've bought is the Great Western Castle class. Now, as you might remember, this one doesn't run, but I am looking into a replacement motor, which I've been informed is most likely the issue causing this locomotive to not run. Sorry if the camera's acting up. It tends to refocus automatically for some reason. Moving on. Now here we have the most expensive model, or technically train pack, in my fleet. The Hornby Lord of the Isles Limited Edition. So, this is the packaging, of course. This white thing in here, where it would normally showcase the locomotives and coaches, is instead a protective barrier. But if you've seen the previous video on Lord of the Isles on my channel, you'll know what it's all about. Yeah, there was a pretty catastrophic crash in that video, but Lord of the Isles was ultimately okay. Moving on. Now this is a personal favourite of mine, and it's the Bachmann Pannier. Now, very mysteriously, one of its front buffers has sadly fallen off and disappeared. I literally have no idea how this happened, but rest assured I am looking into a replacement for it. So, that's pretty much all I have to say there. Let's move on to the final Great Western engine I have in my fleet. And last but not least for the Great Westerners is my Airfix 1400, which is sadly also not a runner. I have been told that replacing the motor would be the best way to go to get this back in working order, but I've had difficulty in the past removing the casing to get to the mechanism so as to make that repair. I'll keep you posted if and when I get this little guy up and running. With that said, I think now would be a good time to take a break from the Big Four engines and move on to the two pre-grouping or non-Big Four engines I have in my fleet. Alright, the 1400 was the first model I ever owned, and here's the second. The Caledonian Chanter, which, if I remember right, is technically called a 256 or 262 class. I'd have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. Anyway, as you might have seen from the intro on most of my videos, or many of them I should say, this little fella is a speedy boy. And I think that's due to it having possibly a coreless motor. I could be wrong about that, but from what I've seen, model makers tend to use coreless motors in Caledonian engines, and that causes them to be speedy. Moving on. And here we have the smallest engine in my fleet, a Hornby Terrier. Now, of course, these were originally built by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway, but this one here is wearing a very lovely Kent and East Sussex blue. I particularly like this livery, and the blue livery on the Caledonian Chanter as well. I'm trying to think what I wanted to say here. Apologies, it seems to have slipped my mind. So, I guess we'll move on to the nor'easters. Alright, now starting off with the smallest LNER engine I have, we have the LNER J15, originally the Great Eastern Railway Y14. This is admittedly one of the slowest engines I own, although I think the Pannier tends to be a bit slower. But I've never had any problems with this engine, and everything is still in good order, although it could use a dust. So, next exhibit, please. Next up, another engine from the early days of my channel, the LNER D16. Now, why am I not showing you the tender? Well, that's because the coal load, which I found out is removable, has disappeared. I have my suspicions about what happened to it, but long story short, I pulled it out of the dog's mouth and it had to be disposed of. Now, just with the Pannier's buffer, I am looking into replacements, but I'm also considering doing what some people do, and actually breaking down a real lump of coal to make little bits of coal to put in the tender. If you think that would be a good idea, or if it would be better to just get a replacement plastic load, do let me know. I've said it before and I'll say it again, but my absolute favourite model in my entire collection is this, the Hornby Flying Scotsman. Seen here wearing an LNER green livery instead of BR green, as it's currently, the real Scotsman is painted in the National Railway Museum at York. Now, despite the other video I made about that museum, this is the other thing that I don't like about it personally, that they put Scotsman in BR green instead of LNER green. I know it might seem a little silly, but I definitely prefer LNER green to BR green. Although the BR Lake crest does look pretty good, I can't deny. So with that, we'll move on to the last of my LNER locos. And to end off with the LNER engines, we have an A4 Quicksilver. Now, I often call this Silver Fox by accident, but no, Quicksilver is the real name. Now, the silver livery here is probably the most unique in my fleet, which is a lot of green and black and some blue. So, Quicksilver definitely stands out among my engines, and I have to say it looks pretty nice. It runs well, never had any problems with it. So, I think that pretty much summarizes Quicksilver. To end off, I guess we'll look at the models I own from Backmans Thomas line. So we'll rapid fire through the Thomas models quickly. Here's Emily, Edward, and James. There's not much I could say about them here. If you've seen the TV show, these models look pretty much identical to the TV show, and they all run well, and I've never had any problems with them. But hang on, I think we're missing one. Well, we started Great Western, we'll end Great Western with the Bachmann Oliver. Yeah, you can probably tell by my channel icon and banner art that I have a soft spot for the GWR. And that might not entirely reflect in my model collection, but I do intend to acquire more Great Western engines over time. So most of the gang is here. So what does the future hold? Oh, the D16 fell over. Anyway, what does the future hold for my collection? Well, right now I'm debating between buying more model locomotives and building up my fleet of rolling stock. Most recently, I have bought this, the Backmans Thomas Great Western aerated goods van. So, while I would like to buy some more model locomotives, I think for the short to medium term, it would be better for me to focus on building out my fleet of rolling stock. Now, this turned out to be a longer video than I thought it would be, so until next time, whenever that may be, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.